In the 1980s, we had a runaway train in Marvel Comics that was the X-Men, the Merry Marvel Mutants. They were so popular that they started to expand into other lines with New Mutants. But they wanted to keep pushing that a little bit further, even at the behest of Chris Claremont, who was kind of spearheading the whole movement there. And editor-in-chief at the time, Jim Shooter, really pushed hard, even against Chris Claremont's better wishes. But that spawned X Factor. And we have an Omnibus, Volume 1 to show off, collecting 1,200 pages of material here. Stay tuned and watch this video until the end. And we're back. This is Taylor of Taylor Talks Comics. Whether you're watching this on my channel or the OPB YouTube channel, please give the video a thumbs up and comment down below and subscribe. Especially if you're on my channel. I am on the road to 3,000 subscribers and I need your help. But all those thumbs ups and comments and things help the YouTube algorithm put these videos in front of the eyeballs of people that don't know these videos exist. Maybe other comic book fans looking for some good comic book YouTube content. All right, so we have the X Factor, the original X-Men Omnibus. You can see this is a very thick omnibus here. It's clocking in over 1,200 pages. Let's see the spine there. Try to get the glare off there. So you got Marvel Omnibus, X Factor, the original X-Men. Really good spine design here with Cyclops on the bottom. This is the, I believe this is a direct market cover, or the stand. I can't remember. I'm sorry. But there is another cover available. And on that cover, the spine has Jean and Cyclops on it, kind of looking upon each other, which we'll get into. And the cover is different as well. So let's go over the dust jacket. You see the inner flaps here. Third Genesis is the title there because first Genesis was the birth of the X-Men. Second Genesis was giant size X-Men. And now we have X Factor. They have a really cool wraparound cover design with a bunch of different iconic panels from the interiors of this book itself. Really like that. It's a very different book design than they normally go with the plain black kind of boring stuff. Which I don't mind that so much either, but I do like when they do something different. We open this baby up and we have some really great royal blue in sheets here. And great title page there. I love the blue, yellow, and black of the X Factor colors. And the X-Men colors, right? That's like some of the iconic color palettes of the X-Men. You get a picture of the original X-Men here who are forming our new team, X Factor. Credits all the way throughout here. I do want to note the artist here is kind of a all-star cast. Butch Guice kicks off the series, but then we have Walter Simonson, John Buscema, John Byrne, Keith Pollard, Bob Layton, Mark Silvestri, Sal Buscema, David Mazzucchelli, Todd McFarlane, Al Milgrom, John Bolton, Mike Collins. So really a who's who of artists from the Marvel bullpen in the 80s. Now we get a great table of contents, and this is, I love this, that more Marvel does this. You see the issue, what page it starts on, and the month and year that it came out. All that context is really nice to know when these issues are. So you see all the way throughout here, we have issues that came out from 86 all the way through 88. So it's about 2 years worth of content here. Now at the back end, they did add in a couple strips from Classic X-Men number 8 and Classic X-Men number 43, which are needed context for some of the stories within this. And then we have Secret Wars 2 number 5, Despair. And then we dive into the story. So, what is X Factor and why the heck was this series made? And I have a little preamble there to start off the video. I talked about how this was at the behest of Chris Claremont, that Jim Shooter really wanted to push to have this team back. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a minor spoiler, but it is kind of the launching pad and the premise of this book, so I kind of have to get into it a little bit. I'll avoid spoilers for the later parts of the stories. But, starting off with Avengers 263, this is the era of Roger Stern is writing this. We have John Buscema on the breakdowns, Tom Palmer on the finishes. And our story here, we have, this is when Namor was maybe joining Avengers, maybe not, and all the team of the Avengers were very hesitant of, some of them didn't mind that Namor was joining the group, some of them absolutely did not want him to. But Namor's going to play an important part because him and Captain Marvel here will fly down into the bottom of the sea and find this big giant cocoon that has these Kirby dots pouring out of it. What the heck is this cocoon? It's a mystery. We don't know. So it's kind of the ongoing tensions of the Avengers. Even Captain America is drawing a description based on what Captain Marvel is telling him. Or Captain America is drawing the description based on what Captain Marvel is telling him. Great John Buscema artwork, though. I love the underwater scenes here. I love the crazy, goofy costumes of them wearing this underwater helmets. It's just like charming stuff that you expect in comic books. You can imagine like action figures of those suits too. And then at the end of that issue, the cocoon, we see the cocoon is saying Scott, and it's this redheaded woman inside. And then, not to tease you, but tells you make sure you go to this comic racks and buy Fantastic Four number 286. And it says, don't miss Like a Phoenix. So obviously as a reader, you're going to be freaking out if you're reading this in real time. And you see on the cover of 286, you have Phoenix in the middle with a special appearance of the Uncanny X-Men. And you got Sue Storm with a terrible haircut. So this is the era of Fantastic Four that John Byrne was writing and drawing. Great, great run of Fantastic Four. I can't recommend it enough. This is also on the team when She-Hulk is taking the Thing spot, because the Thing is, well, you have to read Secret Wars to find out where the Thing is. Now, this is a really special issue because not only is John Byrne writing and penciling this, but we have Terry Austin on inks. Now, why that's important is that John Byrne, Terry Austin, and Chris Claremont made the trifecta of talent that really took the Uncanny X-Men to new heights. After Dave Cockrum left, John Byrne joined on the book, and his pairing with Terry Austin's inks was just magic. So having Terry Austin on inks in this issue, when they're revisiting the X-Men, some of these characters that they made into these superstar giant of a sales popular comic book, what I'm trying to say here, is awesome. Anyways, I digress. They bust up on the cocoon. They get Jean Grey out of there. They're trying to figure out how she's still alive. She's explaining her last thoughts. Her last memories are from before she hit the wall, like before the Dark Phoenix stuff. So her memories actually predate before her apparent death in, I think it's Uncanny X-Men 137, if I remember correctly. And then at the end of this issue, which they had to kind of reconfigure some of the last couple pages and whatnot, but at the end of the issue, you have Reed Richards calling some of the old team of the X-Men. Now, why that's important is because the X-Men at this time are presumed to be dead. The fall of the mutants happens, and they're presumed to no longer exist, and they're split apart, so they're not aware of these events just yet. So now we have X Factor issue number 1, Third Genesis. This is like a 40-page issue, so it's a big longer than your normal issue. You have Bob Layton as the writer, Jackson Guice as the penciler, and then as the inkers, you got Bob Layton, Jackson Guice, Joseph Rubinstein, and on colors, you have a few people. And what happened here was that this issue was being the back history of this issue is actually kind of insane. The whole issue was almost complete, it's being lettered, pencils, inks, everything was done. Jim Shooter got it and was like, no, this isn't working. We need to redo this thing. So they had to redo the majority of the issue again. Multiple pages were redone. I wish they kind of included this in here too, kind of the back history of this, because some of the creators were talking about how they were all in the same apartment at the same time. Some people were spread out in the bathtub, some people were in the living room, some people in the dining room, all trying to pencil and ink pages as they were going, and letter pages to get this issue out on time. So the back history is kind of insane. Like I said, Chris Claremont wanted nothing to do with this, but Jim Shooter was pushing it. So you'd think it'd be a heck of a mess of an issue, and then it would make no sense, and it would be horrific, right? But I actually really enjoyed this. This is my first time reading this material. Should have said that too. I have read a lot of X-Men, but I've not read it all the way through from beginning to end. I've read all the Silver Age. I've read the majority of Claremont's beginning of his run, and then the end of his run with some 90s stuff and stuff after that. It's really the middle of Claremont's run that I haven't read a lot of, and that's when you start to get X Factor, Excalibur, and those kinds of things jumping in here. So I was aware of some of these things just from people talking about it, but I had never read it. Now, here's the horrific thing that happens in this first issue, is that it starts off, we can see on the first page, Scott Summers is out in Alaska cutting logs of wood with his sonic beams or his eye beams, whatever. And you have his wife over here, Maddie, and their son, Nathan Christopher Summers. They've gone off the grid. They're living in Alaska, trying to live a normal life. Scott Summers wants nothing of the free hero life anymore, and Maddie, quite frankly, wants him to have nothing to do with the hero life as well. But there's some turmoil there, and Maddie's trying to break through to him, saying, like, I know that you're still thinking of Jean. How do you think I feel how I look just like Jean, and that's the only reason you're in love with me, and the only reason you left the X-Men is because you lost this battle, because in X-Men 201, Cyclops and Storm battle for the leadership role of X-Men, and Cyclops loses. That's a story you have to read for yourself. It's pretty amazing. And she's like, the only reason you're here is because I look like Jean, and also because you lost that battle, and you're stuck here, basically. You don't actually want to be here. And Scott doesn't deny it. So now we have Angel, we have Beast coming through, and they find out and discover that Jean Grey is alive. And they're freaking out. Here's a little side story of Rusty Collins. He's a mutant that's going to come up later, but you can see he has mutant abilities and accidentally sets his girlfriend on fire. Little side story. But let's get back to the main story here. So now you have Angel flying into the Fantastic Four headquarters saying, what the heck do you mean Jean Grey's alive? So that they're talking, and then they call Scott Summers in Alaska. And Scott's like, what the hell? The love of my life is alive? All right, adios, Maddie and Nathan Christopher Summers, my son. And he leaves them. Now, this is a damning thing that happens to Scott Summers that I don't think has recovered from ever since. What they did to his character here, because prior to this, Scott Summers is the ultimate Boy Scout, the ultimate leader of the team, ultimate straight arrow, only, the do-gooder of the team. Especially in contrast to, like, Wolverine, who's kind of like the anti-hero. So prior to this, he does no wrong. Any sort of moral event happening, he's always choosing the right side. So when he does this and leaves his wife and leaves his son, abandons them for his old love, which, you can't blame him. He's still in love with her, whatever. But he left his wife and son for no reason. Or not for no reason, but with no reasoning to them. And he meets Jean. Now, do they rekindle their love? Well, not exactly, because Scott Summers doesn't explain to her right away that he has a wife and son. Because remember, Jean Grey doesn't know what happened. Jean Grey's last memory is that her and Scott were in this relationship. She doesn't know. She knows that time has passed, but she doesn't know what he's been up to. And any time throughout these issues, in the beginning, that she tries to confront him and say, "What's going on? Why are you so distant? Why won't you embrace me? Why can't we be boyfriend and girlfriend again?" That kind of thing. He just kind of blows her off, or something will happen. He'll be like, "Okay, I'll tell you," but some sort of event happens where some villain's attacking or something, and they have to go fight him. The soap opera drama that Chris Claremont was so good at in X-Men is so prevalent here. Like, Bob Layton does a really good job in these launching of these first 5 issues, keeping and maintaining that tone of that soap opera drama and romance that was so prevalent in X-Men that people loved. It's probably something that I loved, and probably why I transitioned to slice of life and autobio comics so easily coming out of these X-Men comics growing up. But I digress. So here's the idea of X Factor and why they're getting together. It's the original 5. Like I said, it's Beast, it's Angel, it's Cyclops, Iceman, and Marvel Girl Jean Grey. They're getting back together because of Cameron Hodge, who's this socialite, billionaire kind of guy. I know him, again, because I've read my X-Men. I haven't read it from beginning to end. I know Cameron Hodge and what he turns into back in an event in the 90s called the Phalanx Covenant. I don't know if Cameron Hodge, in his debut in these issues, being this normal human being kind of leading this team. Now, this was 1986. It did kind of give me similar vibes to JLI with their leader and kind of guy pulling the strings and funding it and behind the scenes being maybe evil, maybe not. But anyways, the idea of the team is to create this mutant buster team, kind of like the Ghostbusters, where these 5 people will go on these clandestine missions, find a mutant and put them down, kill them. All the humans are around them are happy, because at this time is like the height of mutants being hated by everyone around them. So this, like, the tensions are high, and it's everything you know and from real life about racial tensions and people thinking that certain people shouldn't have certain rights of other people and those kinds of things. So these five mutants, even though people don't know they're mutants, they think they're humans. They're just in this clandestine team called the X Factor. They're going and putting down these mutants. However, the twist is that Beast, Cyclops, Angel, Marvel Girl, and Iceman are actually going to seek out these mutants, take them back to their headquarters, and help them with their powers in kind of the same, feeding into the same mission that Professor Xavier had of trying to launch a safe haven for mutants to be able to hone in and fix their powers and whatnot. So it's kind of this twisted thing to where they're going in on the front where public thinks they're fighting and killing mutants, but they're really bringing them back and giving them a safe haven. Now, this is intelligently written, though. Even though it sounds kind of befuddled and convoluted, it's intelligently written because Marvel Girl and others throughout the team are talking about how, like, if we're this team of 5 people going and killing these mutants, and that's our mission, that's what people know by the public. Like, they have a hotline you can call, just like the Ghostbusters, 1-800-X-Factor, or whatever the heck the number is, where you can call and say, hey, I've got a mutant problem over here in Chicago. Can you come and take care of it for me? And then they go and take care of it. So they have commercials. They have all these things that tell the public, we are okay with going and killing mutants. So the team behind the scenes, Jean Grey and Iceman, I believe, are constantly talking about, like, are we just raising that tension, raising that awareness of how evil mutants are by going and putting them down, and that's like cover public front. So it's intelligently written because it's not a cut and dry thing. There is even some questioning behind the scenes of the team. That's the whole pitch of the first 5 issues. That's the whole pitch for the book to launch you off to see if you want to read this or not. I had a blast reading those issues, and it put me on a tailspin of reading the whole rest of the book, which was magnificent, and it really stretches and builds upon this lore of X Factor that I didn't know was so good. I always kind of put off X Factor, like, I don't know. And I have read X Factor later with all different X Factor with the Peter David years, and I love that with Larry Stroman artwork. Great stuff. But X Factor before that I've not read, but now this has me wanting to read it. Now, I do collect all my mutant stuff in Epic Collection, so I have the Volume 1 X Factor and Volume 3. We've yet to get a Volume 2. So that's kind of what I was waiting on to read X Factor in my reading. However, I have this Omnibus now, and I was able to read that gap between those, and Volume 3 of the Epic Collections continues on after this Omnibus. So now we get the debut of Apocalypse, and this is when Louise Simonson takes over on the writing duties. Later, we'll get Walter Simonson on art duties, which is amazing. Walter Simonson is one of the most underrated artists in all of comic book history, especially Big 2 comics. We also have some early Mark Silvestri art throughout here. And then even, we have Power Pack appearance. Who's on the art on this one? Is that... I'm trying to remember the typical Power Pack artist. Oh, wow, must be really late in the issue here. No? There we go. Oh, John Bogdanove. Okay. So there's a Power Pack issue in here. There's also a Thor issue in here. So like I said, Walter Simonson is doing some X Factor stuff. He crosses over with Thor because this is taking place during a time when he's writing and drawing Thor. And an important note, these are this Thor issue here, which is Thor issue 373. Yeah. And it has the original colors. So if you have the Walter Simonson Thor Omnibus, you know that they have gone back and colored it with modern colors, I think by Steve Oliff, who is the same guy that did the Swamp Thing Absolutes. But these are the original colors. I opted to not get that Omnibus for Walter Simonson's Thor. I'm going to get that in Epic Collections because I want those original colors. So it was nice to see that. But I digress. So it kind of starts off with Fall of the Mutants is where we're launching off the book. And then we're getting into Mutant Massacre by the end of this Omnibus. So there is the big issue of if you have the Uncanny X-Men Volume 5 Omnibus and you get the Prelude to Mutant Massacre Omnibus, do you even need this book? No. But if you want to go the route of collecting all of the Uncanny X-Men Omnibuses 1 through 5 plus, the future 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then you also want X Factor Volumes 1, 2, 3, 4. Because X Factor Volume 2 will be left on your shelf by itself if you don't get this, because not all of those issues are collected throughout the event omnibuses of X-Men. That's a choice you can make. There's far smarter people, mutant experts like Omar on Near Mint Condition that explain all that breakdown for you. I'm just here to talk about this. And this is one issue I want to point out. David Mazzucchelli, amazing artist, one of the greatest pure illustrative artists that we've ever had in comics. It's a blessing anytime we find a comic book with his artwork in it. He does this issue of Marvel Fanfare with Anna Senti drawing. And I think he does a few other issues in the back as well. Here's the Mighty Thor. This is Walter Simonson writing, but Sal Buscema drawing it. And again, original colors throughout this. Throughout here, so Apocalypse becomes a big deal too. So he gets introduced in, I think, the 6th issue by Louis Simonson. And I think Butch Guice is still on art during that time. And it kind of reminded me of the way that Darkseid and Thanos both debuted in their own respective comics, where they're kind of a mutant, or not a mutant, sorry, they're more of a human-sized figure that their powers are very much diminished based on what they become. Kind of reminiscent of that. He's kind of one of those big Titan characters that starts off as a normal-looking guy, and then he builds up into this monstrous, evil mutant that has this legendary, career from here on out. So I said Todd McFarlane earlier. Now, here's the Todd McFarlane artwork. You get it during the Peter David Hulk run. There's a crossover here. And Todd McFarlane drawing the Hulk is always amazing. He draws Hulk to look like a total monster, which is the way the Hulk should look. And this is Peter David's first time writing some X-Factor stories. Peter David would have a long history on X-Factor. I think that we're going to have like 4 total omnibuses collecting all of his X-Factor run. So this is just the first glimpse of it. And then towards the end here, we get Fantastic Four 312. This is the Steve Englehart era of Fantastic Four. This is when the Thing is taking over as the leader. When you have Sue and Reed taking a break from the Fantastic Four. Almost retiring, if you will, but they come back, obviously. And then in the back here, here's the back matter. We have Classic X-Men 8 and 43. Now, these are classic strips. Classic X-Men were these reprints. They would reprint a full issue of X-Men, and then in the back matter, they'd add pages of story that added on to previous material. And that's what you get here, adding to the Phoenix lore of how she got put into the cocoon, and how she survived that, and how it was Phoenix that died, and it wasn't Jean Grey. That's all explained there. Secret Wars number 2, or Secret Wars 2 number 5, shows the debut of Boom Boom, who becomes a big-time mutant character, even through today. So that's why that's put in here. And those are put at the back of the omnibus. I do kind of wish they were mapped inside the omnibus where they should have been, but, what can you do? Here's Marvel Age. Marvel Age was a trade magazine done by Marvel. So if you think like Wizard magazine, but as if Marvel had their own. And they're debuting X-Factor and trying to explain it, but it's classified. So you have like Mike Carlin talking about it, but they've redacted parts of it. Mostly the parts where Phoenix is talked about. Now, this was redacted in the original magazine, so that magazine came out before the reveal that Phoenix was coming back. So the fans, they didn't want to spoil that, so that's why it's redacted in here. Bob Layton talks about it. Jackson Guice talks about it. Roger Stern, John Byrne, and then Jim Shooter. Now, I will say those are kind of disappointing to read because there's not really any behind-the-scenes stuff. It's not like you don't see that tension with Chris Claremont and the whole story behind that. They're really just kind of pitching what X-Factor is going to be. I would have preferred like some sort of afterword or foreword written by somebody in 2024 writing about the history of how this all came about, but I digress. You do get some Fred Hembeck comics, which is pretty cool. And then there's some more trade magazine material of X-Factor, The Fall of Mutants from Marvel Age. And you get some original pages of art in here. And though the Marvel Mutant Massacre map, and which order to read those in, which is a really cool thing they did as advertisement back then, which is awesome that they collected that in here. Here's some covers, more Fred Hembeck comics. This is jam-packed with extras in the back. Now, this clocks in, like I said, over 1,200 pages. Here's not the who's who, what do they call it? The Marvel biographies, things, whatever. And then here's some trade paperback covers that they had. And yeah. Now, I will say, the one thing that this was missing that I was disappointed in were the letters pages. And I'm a huge fan of letters pages in all omnibuses when I can get them. But this one in particular I wanted to read because I wanted to know what fans were actually thinking about these stories in real time. I wanted to see what people were writing into these letters, talking about how did they feel about Phoenix coming back. Were they excited? Were they upset? Did they think it was stupid and annoying? How did they think about the first few issues of X Factor? I wanted to read all of that, but they're not included in here, which is weird because Marvel typically, with these Silver, Bronze Age, and I guess this is Modern Age, it's 1986, omnibuses, like these ongoing volume ones that don't have like a creator-centric one, they'll include those in there, but they didn't in here. Now, strangely enough, they did include the letter pages inside the Mutant Massacre Prelude omnibus. I don't know why they did that. That's very strange. But they didn't in here. Wow, I am out of breath. I hope you cut all that. But this is a very long video. X Factor, the original X-Men omnibus, took me by surprise. It's very exciting, very, very fascinating, and it's a fun read. It was a read that I was able to read the whole omnibus all the way through without feeling like I was missing out on part of the story because I wasn't reading X-Men at the time. Totally fine. I was able to read this one and done all on its own, and it read just fine. Deep breath. All right. Thank you, guys. Please give the video a thumbs up. Comment down below. Like I said, those things help the YouTube algorithm put this video in front of people's eyeballs that don't know this channel exists. And subscribe if you haven't already. Subscribe to Organic Price Books YouTube channel. Subscribe to Taylor Talks Comics. I am trying to get to 3,000 subscribers, and I need your help. Please and thank you. Keep talking comics.